Before we go too much farther, I want to explain a couple of things. So what you're seeing is DOSBox, which is an emulator, because that's a very good and reliable way to play DOS games. To the point where it's actually, ironically, easier to stream a game literally from the 80s than it is to stream a game from the aughts. And that's what I wanted to discuss briefly. I know not everybody knows what the streamability gap is, so I thought I'd explain the streamability gap very briefly. Now, that's my terminology for that concept. The streamability gap is a range of games generally in the aughts, like late 90s to about the 2010s a little bit, just kind of in this range, give or take. And not every game in there fits in that box, obviously, and not every game, and there are games outside of it that don't qualify, but it's just kind of a general range of games that can go straight to hell because they're very, very frustrating and irritating to get running on modern machines. I've described this before, but the way I like to say it is that smarter people than me could really explain to you the specifics of why and how they were just figuring out how to do 3D rendering, and a lot of the methods by which they used back in the day don't really work on modern machines, and so require some degree of either porting or emulation or whatever. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of the games I have vetoed over the years sit within that gap. It's because of streamability, because I have to be able to procure a game, then run a game, and then stream a game, and that's more stringent requirements than you'd think for the streamability gap. The reason it's relevant to this game is because, ironically, and I already said this, games predating the gap tend to be easier to get running on modern machines because they were so much easier to emulate, because we've already solved the emulation of those games in those systems in those eras. And if you've been paying any attention over the last 8 years or whatever it's been of streaming, the streamability gap, even in that time, has actually shrunk a little bit. So earlier things have gotten a little bit easier to run, and ditto with later things. And some ports and some remasters and that kind of pull things out a little bit, like this, in order to try and pull them out of the streamability gap. But either way, that's the streamability gap in a nutshell. That's a good question, the Hidden Boss. Did you know that I have a website, which I will never stop plugging? I will never stop plugging that website because so many people don't know it exists. And on that website, there is a queue which you can see all of the upcoming stuff. Which also, if you just want to type in !next into chat, like Flygan just did, you can get a direct link to the upcoming page. You're right, my score is 2! Yes! Yes! Yeah, what's the one thing Sierra games are most famous for? Death! Or, to be slightly more accurate, deaths! We're at 1%! Yes! It's Purple Saurus. No! I was hoping to die. Wait, am I dead? Holy crap, I'm not dead. Well, I'm surprised by that. I mean, coffee is a drug. It's just a, extraordinarily minor drug compared to most. I bring you that which you ordered. May it please and satisfy you. That's true. Coffee's a drug. Decaf is an abomination. Hostile intent is evident. You prepare for battle. Ah! What? What? Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm so sorry, Directy. Ironically, it hasn't gotten stuck in my head, but at least part of that's because I've been putting deliberate effort into not allowing it. you have a bad feeling about this place. Guys, pop out. You have an even worse feeling about this place. Hi. Hello. I'm here to talk. You knew this job was dangerous. This was not the ending you had in mind when you read the manual on how to be a hero. Either you just aren't ready to take on the situation, or it's a better way to accomplish your mission. One of the things that I didn't talk about out loud that I have already jotted down a positive for, you have no idea, Melkor, is the world building. There's a surprisingly well-coherent amount of world building going on just for this one tiny little valley. And it's not like super in-depth, you know, Tolkien-esque, in the beginning there was a tree which came forth from the sapling of dreams, or whatever. No. What I mean by that is it's just well-done world building. It's the kind of world building I like, where the world is the way it is because someone sat down and thought about how it should all interconnect. And so when you're going through it, you can tell, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it just kind of works, right? It's the same style of thing as good exposition, for example. And his father was an Henry, and his father was an Henry, and his father was an Henry. And every one of them was an Abbot. Who do you have sex with to have children? Better question. Who is having sex with you to have children? Whoop. We haven't been... yep, okay. Here we go. Super death. And we're dead. Alright. So, right off the bat, I'm going to hit a button. Right off the bat, I wanted to mention a couple of things. So I've actually played a lot of point-and-click adventures in my day. Now, I'm going to go and be honest. I think, just being as honest as I possibly can about this, I think most point-and-click adventures would score pretty badly. At least percentage-wise. Especially the old ones, right? The old 80s and 90s ones. Because they sucked. There was some good ideas, some good core concepts, some interesting moments, and I like the overall format. But a lot of them are just kind of awkward and cumbersome and weird. So this game is awkward and cumbersome and weird. And yet, one thing I've been noticing as I've been going through it is, while the mechanisms of the game kind of suck, the meat of the game doesn't. Which is, to be completely honest, actually impressive. The overwhelming majority of point-and-click adventures have both problems. The interface, mechanisms, HUD, etc. And the core meat of the game, which sucks, right? I gave that massive spiel about, what was it, Journey to whatever. Moon logic exists for a reason, right? We call that term for a reason. And yet I haven't seen a single indication of moon logic this time around. And in fact, other than a couple of very minor incidents periodically, the game has actually flowed surprisingly well. And the quest design has been good too. Oh, speaking of which, I need to get at that one too. Thank you for reminding me. I'll have more on that in a minute. So what I'm trying to say is, while I am giving 10 negatives to gameplay for interface, HUD, bugs, map, you know, the stuff that are all just kind of modern game design things that they didn't have back then or didn't use back then, I do want to mention that I'm giving a full 4 gameplay positives, which I know sounds like a small amount. But it's not really intended to be, if that makes any sense. I can think of many point-and-click adventure games which not only wouldn't get these 4, but would have more down here. So, make of that what you will. I've also decided to codify our story positive side of things here. Just kind of lock that down there. If you want Mega Man music, I can help you out with that, Durandolphy. It's a little loud. There you go. No? Okay. But yeah, no, like, just interface standards and HUD design and mouse controls and, like, even the combat of this game isn't necessarily bad. It's just implemented awfully. This is Mega Man 11. Very good. So, yeah, no, and I agree. This feels like a bit of an experimental game. I don't know if it is, given that this absolutely came out after several other Quest series games. Hey, Alex. It's bad luck to be you. Oh my god, my nose itches. I hate it when my nose itches, because there's, like, only one way to scratch it. And it looks like I'm picking, and I'm not, I swear to god. Ah, okay. Ate that crap. Oh, it's a joke, Alex. It's... So there's a song they wouldn't stop singing. Like, we heard it 8 times. Yeah, go watch the highlight reel. Go watch the highlight reel. I'm glad you like the highlight reel, speaking of which. I'm really happy with how the highlight reels are turning out. We're already developing. Like, I've already come up with a few new techniques and a few new ways to make it a little bit more interesting. Okay, there we go. Mr. Red, I am sending you a link. Do me a favor and tell me if it works. Because if it doesn't, we'll figure out something else out. But hopefully that'll be able to get that to you so we can get on with it. Now, I do think that what we're going through right now sucks, where I have to figure out exactly how many apples it needs. Oh, that's another thing I want to give this game a positive for. Now, most point-and-click games should have this positive, in my opinion. And this is one of the few I would actually give it to. That positive is itemization. There's several resource mechanisms in place in this game. That I like how they're balanced and designed. There's 2 categories of money, for example. There's the once ever, you know, the one-off quest kind of gold you can make. And then there's the infinitely repeatable kind. And I put it this way because this is a huge chunk of gold which can cover a fairly large amount of expenses in the game. And this is not, but is repeatable. It's actually good design overall, because it means the game is designed around this chunk over here and rewarding you with resources you need to get the quest items you need and to get the benefits and bonuses you need. But if you want to go grind, which, whatever, but if you do, you actually can, and then that's this little thing over here. I've also been thinking about the use it to level it system. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a wash in this case. Which, if you know me, you know that that's as positive as I'm going to get about that kind of a system. I don't think it's as egregious as it usually is. And the rate at which you increase skills and the fact that you are still using a resource, stamina, or magic, most usually, in order to actually raise it, kind of helps mitigate it a little bit. Especially given the fact that most of those things can only be restored via time or money. So the resource system is kind of balancing itself out a little bit. I'm not going to give it a positive. I don't think there is such a thing as a use it, raise it system that I can give a positive. But, and yeah, no, absolutely, Ratu, that's part of itemization as well. It would be really easy for a game like this to... I forget what it's called. It's not building yourself into a corner, but it's the spiral, right? It would be easy to design a game like this where you just fall into the spiral and you can never get out. You just, there's actually a frickin' gameplay term for that, but I usually hear it referred to as a death spiral. But it looks like, based on how you can procure food and sleep without needing other resources, means you can at the very least try and tread water and then pull yourself back up, as opposed to, woo! I mean, yeah, it's kind of a death loop situation. I will also say that I think that the game does a pretty decent job with most of letting you know how you're doing. That being said, I did ding it. One of those negatives is for info in game. Well, there is certainly some info in the game. There are certain things that I never would know that I have prevented myself from beating the game if someone hadn't told me that, right? But either way, I'm more positive about this game than I thought it would be, and I wanted to indicate that despite my irritation with this is what's going on here right now. Now, before I move on, it's okay, Time Lost. I do understand. It's why I try very hard not to get irritated when people backseat as hard as you were doing this morning. Or as, like, for example, the infamous Halo run, which I'll never stop referencing. Because, oh my god, it was bad. I've had viewers complain when they watched the VOD about how bad the backseating was during the Halo runs. It's extraordinarily... Why is there a 3 there? It's extraordinary... Oh, that's why there's a 3 there. It's extraordinarily frustrating and irritating to me, and I try to just swallow it. Because I know that most people who do that aren't doing that to be a dick. You're not trying to irritate me. You're either just trying to help, or you're just enthusiastic, right? And that's important. That's important. And it's something that needs to be kept in mind. That's why I try to be as understanding about that as I possibly can be. I don't always succeed. But that's why it was just a timeout, right? I wanted to get your attention, Time Lost. It's, There's in-game music, Crazy Norse? Here, hang on. In case you missed it. This is the in-game music. I haven't muted it. So, let me do my due diligence and actually clip this for the highlight reel, because I've been trying to clip not just moments or even lore discussions, but also gameplay design discussions and explaining why certain things are negatives. So, this is the interface. It sucks. There's something in programming that's called tunneling, drilling down and drilling up, right? If you click something several times and then right-click to back out of the windows, that's drilling down and drilling up, okay? Really, really basic stuff that I very rarely have to bring up in game design, because most of that stuff was solved bagrillions of years ago. Even back on the NES, A is down and B is up. And again, on the PC, left-click being down and right-click being up is extremely common, right? Or escape is another example of that. If you just escape out and it pulls yourself out of menus. In this game, the only way to get out of this particular menu is to hit that check mark. Now, that may seem like a relatively minor irritant, but I cannot tell you how much of a stumbling point that is, because it's constant. This is true for every menu in the game, actually. In order to get out of, like, any of these menus, I have to hit that little thing down there. Like in here, this is one of the only places that escape actually works. Okay, there we go. It's a little delayed, but it's there. And of course, I can't even check the spells here, but if I go this way, just to show off a little bit here. Once again, the only way to get out of this menu, even if I select a spell... Oh, never mind. Okay, I can actually select a spell to get out of this menu. Which, actually, that's even worse, because that means the drill down, drill up is inconsistent. Which, in my opinion, is worse than an absence of design there. We've actually run into this before in game design. I forget what game it was. It might have been Secret of the Stars, because that was ignored the X and the Y buttons. But a game where you have to hit this button to go down, but then a separate button to go up, but only in certain menus, is extraordinarily frustrating to get used to. And it's a rock and a shoe problem, right? Because it's not really that big of a deal. It just adds more clicks and more irritation. But because it is such a non-stop, constant problem, you're just tripping over it over and over and over and over again. I think it was Secret of the Stars, now that I'm thinking about it, because I can picture the menu right now. And Secret of the Stars had this exact same issue. Where it was different buttons to go down and different buttons to go out, depending on the menu. Another thing this game kind of has problems with regards to HUD design, which is also part of interface, is cross-referencing. So here's my spells, right? How much mana do I have to cast with these spells? Now, there's several ways to showcase this. They could have an actual HP, stamina, mana bar just permanently up. Or maybe something where you can pop it down like you can in the menu. Or maybe it's even in the magic menu here. None of those things are true, however. What we have to do is we have to click that button and click that button to pull up our actual stat page and look at the bottom and see that we have 22 magic right now. Now that we know how much magic we have, we then have to manually cross-reference and see, okay, how much do these spells cost? Because how much do these spells cost? And the answer again is we have to actually click this button and then click again. That also tells us our expertise with it. Now, again, all of this is relatively minor stuff, and I'm only digging the game once for it, or I guess, excuse me, 3 times for it. Which I know sounds like it, that's harsh, but no, I've seen worse interface design than this. But my point being, this is why I bang on about interface design so much, because adding those little touches, those little convenience features, those little cross-referencing features, is what really makes a game so much more fun or easier, smooth to play. Let me use some direct examples. So pretend for a moment that, first of all, that there was a name under these spells, but let's also assume that I could see, like, there's a bar on the left, and, like, maybe a number, and then, like, a bar down here, okay? So this bar down here, this is our total current mana. Current max, okay? Over here on the left, I don't know why I said a bar. There's a number on the left. That's our expertise. A number on the right, that's the cost. Boom, boom, boom. And now all that information is viewable on a single menu. That's still not ideal. We could go up from that. But adding those little individual touches could really add some quality of life and some UI design to make the game a lot more smooth to play. I don't know how many of you have been paying attention. I played games back in this era, so I've kind of slid neatly into the mentality, okay, check this, and then check this, and then check this. And they kind of expected you to have a freaking notepad to jot all this stuff down. I've just been remembering stuff. But that's kind of how it was designed, because so much of it wasn't in the game. I'm used to that, but that doesn't really make it good, and that's why the negatives exist. Okay, so, sorry, I wanted to show that on the highlight reel and kind of give some of my reasoning and thought process there. So, I'll tell you exactly where Moon Logic came from. Something that is very, 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 very common is you'll come up with something. Puzzles are a very common thing for this. And you'll come up with a solution. And that solution makes perfect sense to you because you know all the pieces. What I mean by that, this actually applies to a huge amount of design in general. Engineering design, programming design, game design, point-and-click adventure design, puzzle design, platforming design, RPG design. You know all the pieces because you made the game. You designed it. So when you look at every piece of information available, you say, oh, this. Perfect. This is one of the reasons why bringing in someone who does not know what's going on and testing on them is so critical to the QA process. Because you need an external perspective to look at that and see how much of the pieces of the puzzle that they divine simply by looking at it, right? So a lot of the old point-and-click adventure games, well before this game, they would design puzzles and it made sense to them, and people would be like, and it escalated from there. Because, yeah, no kidding, Jared Dolphin, because some people would do it, and then other people would be like, oh, so people like point-and-click adventure games, or they want to make point-and-click adventure games, or they like the point-and-click adventure games that they played, so they want to make a game like that. And as with most things, they just kind of followed suit on what other people were doing. And at a certain point, people started noticing how ridiculous some of the logic was, and then it became a shtick. At that point, it became a hallmark of the genre, to be perfectly blunt. And I know with actual certainty that quite a few of the older of the middle range point-and-click adventure games, which is 90s range at this point, started leaning into the Moon logic because that's what you expected from a point-and-click adventure game. It wasn't until substantially more modern times that people would start thinking, okay, hold on. Maybe we shouldn't do that so much. But that's why Moon Logic started and how it propagated. I don't know where the term came from, though. Pixel hunting is, ironically, exactly what it sounds like. 78 silver now. So, pixel hunting is, so this is a made-up example. But let's assume for a moment that on the screen you're currently on, you can see the cursor, right? Yeah, I think you can. So let's say you need to click on... You see this little notch on the right side of this table? You need to click that notch in order to be able to progress. Maybe there's a button there. Maybe that's where, I don't know, the treasure of the Sierra Madre is. I don't know. But that's in there. So you need to click that. Nothing shows or indicates that that's a clickable thing. So what you do is you start mousing over all over the place, mashing the button, mashing the mouse, trying to find the spot because you are pixel hunting. Until you finally find the spot and there we go. Yeah, sometimes pixel hunting is, you can tell there's something there, but you're not clicking it in just the right way. That's the more insidious type of pixel hunting. I actually ran into that on the screen I'm at right now. I had to be over standing next to it in order to spot it properly, or you have to be in the right spot, or you have to click the right spot of a thing when nothing really indicates that clicking here is different than clicking up here. So finding the right spot to interact with is another part of pixel hunting. I'm probably thinking, why is that more insidious? Because if you, the player, get the feedback of that's an invalid response, then the gamer is going to generally automatically look at that and say, oh, well, I can't actually do anything with that, therefore that's not an interactable. Now that's normal, especially in a game like this, because there's a huge amount of this game that is non-interactable. You know, that grass is just there for cosmetic, that I can't actually climb up to the roof, etc. But I can climb up to the tree. And so if you're tricked into thinking you can't interact with something you can, then that makes it worse, because now you're looking for something when you already found it. Yeah, we actually ran into this exact issue in Parasite Eve, and I dinged the game for it, because the game effectively tricks you into thinking you haven't found it yet when you have, because you just didn't click it right. Another thing for the VOD, for the highlight reel. So let's assume for a moment that we're staring at a vendor, and we would like to buy from that vendor. How do you buy from that vendor? Now, we could try talking to them. We could try using them. We could try all kinds of things. None of them work. What you have to do, pull up your inventory, grab the money, close the inventory, drag the money onto their face. That pulls up this interface right here, where we can actually buy from them. Okay. Whatever, give me your key. Okay. Alright, now it's time for Death Destructo terms. Who's ready for the most terrifying boss in the entire game? Behold his power! Or Evo. You better find a way to prevent the brigands from getting at you from all sides if you want to survive this. And we're dead. You're half right, but completely dead. There's still too many brigands for you to fight here. Maybe letting this brigand see you block the door with the chair wasn't a good idea. I'm giving this a negative. This is straight up trial and error. No deduction, no logic. Just try something and fail, and it's clear that the death messages are designed to push you through it, but that just means the way to get through it is to fail and then read the message and then fail and read the message. That's not good design. Not screwing up. And then die. Well, that didn't work at all. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, when I hear light, I don't think the candelabra, I think the freaking chandelier, which is clearly poised to fall on them. Oh, a wise guy, eh? And we're dead. And we're dead. Who'd have thought that guys could look that stupid could figure out to go around the table before they ran all the way up to the fallen candelabra? Die, dry, Nachtlandhof grab you off the table. You should have waited until you're out of reach. We have doubled our deaths in this area alone. Like, we weren't exactly dying a small number of times, but we have doubled our deaths in this section. Okay. Ah! You've got to be kidding me. I'm just gonna keep moving this doorway here. That's okay with everybody. There we go. Oh, it's a lot, Gerendorfian. It's a lot of weights, and it's a lot of... Let me give you a perfect example of how much thought I put into the golden number system. Under the, I think, the third iteration of the golden number system, we're up to like 6 right now. I calculated density and used density in order to act as a magnifier for score. The problem is that was unfairly skewed towards games which were very short, like in the 2 to 5 hour range. So what I had to do was I had to readjust and change the system to add a variable amount of weight relative to the type of game and also the actual length of the game. And then use that weight versus the density to get the density value, the density multiplier. So that way a 500-hour game wouldn't be destroyed in score, and a 3-hour game wouldn't be artificially boosted. I put a lot of thought into the golden number. Ladies and gentlemen, this game got just... I don't even know where I'm at with this. Sorry, let me get you something a little bit easier on the ears. X6 has some unique music. No. There we go. So, Quest for Glory 1. We have a net story score. I should put a number here. We have a net story score of +7 to story, which is actually quite respectable. Especially for a game which kind of lacks story presentation, like a game from the 90s. On the gameplay axis, we have -7, which is actually not nearly as bad as it could be. For a bit of perspective, Fallout 2 had a worse gameplay score than that. And Fallout 1 had a much worse gameplay score than that. Still respectable, for reasons I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm doing this out of order because I'm stupid. So, the story and gameplay ratios, however, are both 0.94 and -0.94 respectively, which is why I'm just kind of brushing over that. But our interesting part here is the story positive ratio, which is 100%, no story negatives. And the gameplay positive ratio is 29.41%, leaving us with a golden number of 0. Final thoughts. Obviously, a golden number of 0 says it all, honestly, because 0 is exactly neutral. That's how the system is designed. Any net positive of any type is a net positive game. Even if it's a low net positive, it's still positive. Any negative is a negative, regardless, a net negative game. 0 is right smack in the middle. We've actually had a couple of zeros over the years. In fact, actually, hang on, let me give you an exact number. We have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, counting this one, over the years. And in every case, it's something where the points of gameplay and story balance each other out to equal into the 0 range. Not much actually to add to that. But I do want to talk about the game itself, because it could have been so much worse if the core meat was worse. Like, if the whole game was like those last couple of stages, that would have sucked. It also would have sucked if they had more moon logic, or if there wasn't a natural progression of things, or if so many of the hints weren't in the game, or if the death messages weren't properly designed, etc., etc. I also have to say that the game very clearly was trying something in an era when point-and-click adventures were being churned out left and right. I mean, there were dozens of point-and-click adventures at this point in time. So it's clear this one was trying to drift into something new. And you can also tell that they were kind of planning to go somewhere with it eventually, leading to the eventual Quest for Glory 2, which we'll cover tomorrow. I feel like if this game was made today, it would overall perform a lot better if you got rid of the interface problems, if you got rid of the save system problems, if you got rid of the HUD problems, if you got rid of the audio balancing problems, got rid of the bugs, put in a proper map, and designed the info and game properly. That would still leave a couple of negatives, 3 actually. But that would then push the game into a +2 on the gameplay axis, and I think that says all it needs to right there. But you're probably asking me to talk about the actual core element of the game itself. I don't really have much to add to that. The world building was legit, as I already mentioned, and I like what they did with making some of the characters pop. But that's effectively all I've got to say there. I do hope you enjoyed this stream. It was interesting looking at this particular point in history, now that we've got a boss fight going. Like I said, in probably about 30 to 40 minutes, we'll have our D&D stream. You can type in !Guido to see that. And otherwise, tomorrow, Quest for Glory 2.